At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
Welcome to the Visions of War podcast series.
Presented by me, Bob Carruthers. I'm honoured to have been making military history documentaries for the past 30 years. And in that time, I'm proud to have won an Emmy Award. But more importantly, I've also discovered and shared some great primary source material concerning the history of warfare.
The Visions of War podcast is brought to you with a huge array of informative insights and discussions
Covering every aspect of military history.
You'll find Visions of War wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm sure you won't be disappointed.
Today, we're jumping right into the very start of the Battle of the Bulge, that massive German counteroffensive in the Ardennes, kicking off December 16th, 1944.
Right, a huge shock at the time, not just some local push. This was Hitler's absolute Hail Mary.
Exactly. And we've been digging into the historical reports, the planning documents, trying to understand how they even thought this could work, given where Germany was at the end of 44, and crucially, why it started to stall almost right away.
Well, the context is everything, isn't it? Late 1944, Germany's losing everywhere, totally isolated politically. Their manpower losses were just catastrophic. Over 3 million men by September.
And yet,
mid-September, Hitler makes this momentous decision, as he called it. He lays out this plan for a counterattack straight out of the Ardennes.
aiming for Antwerp. Curiously, Antwerp. Hundreds of miles away. The goal wasn't tactical, it was strategic. Knock out the Allies, split their forces.
The Grand Slam, they called it. He was trying for another Dunkirk, essentially. Yeah. And looking back, historians generally agree. This big solution seemed like the plan of someone, well,
Losing touch with reality.
finally bereft of sanity. It's a phrase you see. It seems strategically impossible from the start.
Okay, so that's Hitler's vision. But what about the generals on the ground? The professionals?
Well, that's where the conflict starts. You had commanders like Model, Rundstedt. They knew they just didn't have the means for something that big.
So they pushed back. What did they want instead?
They argued hard for the small solution, much more limited. Basically, an attack to try and encircle Allied forces east of the Meuse River. More defensive, really, trying to stabilize things.
Right, something achievable.
Exactly. Rundstedt definitely backed Model, arguing the resources just weren't there for Antwerp, but they were overruled.
Okay, let's talk resources. Because the sources paint a picture of this whole thing being built on, nothing, logistically.
Oh, it was fundamentally flawed. Just catastrophically short on everything. Take artillery ammo. The 6th Panzer Army's artillery commander, he pleaded for 12 to 15 units of ammo for the first 10 days, a unit being 1 full load per gun.
Okay, 12 to 15 units needed. What do they actually get?
They got 1.5 units initially.
1.5. That's barely anything.
It's maybe enough shells for a day, maybe a day and a half of really intense fighting. Then what? Hope supplies get through. Scavenge.
And fuel for a blitzkrieg-style armored offensive.
Even worse, arguably. POL petroleum, oil, lubricants. The armored divisions barely had enough fuel for maybe 90 to 100 miles.
So the whole plan depended on capturing Allied fuel.
Completely. That was the assumption baked into the big solution. If they got held up, did the Americans manage to destroy the fuel dumps ahead of them?
The tanks just stopped dead in their tracks.
Regardless of any battlefield success, it was a massive gamble on speed and capturing supplies.
And speed was already a problem before they even started fighting, wasn't it? Transport issues.
Huge problems. They moved a lot of troops by rail beforehand, something like 66 divisions worth of movement. But Allied air power was hitting the railways.
Yeah.
About 27 of those big movements got delayed, by a day or two sometimes.
Which meant
units, critical infantry, had to march an extra 50, 60 miles just to get to their starting positions. On foot, arriving exhausted.
And the roads themselves in the Ardennes, notoriously bad.
Especially with bad weather. It became a mud bath. We have German officers reporting tanks churned down nearly to their decks, just trying to move up. The offensive was almost bogging itself down before the Allies even put up serious resistance.
Right, so the Germans knew logistics were a nightmare. But the Allies, they were completely blindsided by the scale of this thing, weren't they?
Totally. It's a classic intelligence failure, really rooted in Allied overconfidence.
What was the thinking?
The general view was, sure, the Germans might still do something, but they couldn't do much. They knew Germany was short on men, planes, tanks, fuel.
So they couldn't imagine.
They couldn't wrap their heads around the idea that Hitler would launch a major strategic offensive based entirely on capturing enemy supplies. It seemed irrational.
And then there's the Rundstedt effect.
Yeah, that's a key part of it. Allied intelligence really respected Field Marshal von Rundstedt, one of the best German commanders. They assumed he was effectively in charge and that he'd act rationally, according to accepted military strategy.
Meaning a limited attack, conserving resources.
Exactly. And because Rundstedt was actually arguing for the small solution, it kind of confirmed the Allied analysis.
But they missed the crucial piece.
They missed that Hitler had the final say. And Hitler wasn't operating on military logic. It was about willpower, desperation, maybe delusion.
And the warning signs were there, weren't they? Especially in the 8th Corps sector, the weakest part of the line.
Oh, absolutely. The sources list quite a few. Yeah, the 28th Division, the Green 106th Division, both reporting lots of engine noise at night, vehicles moving.
Yeah, that was dismissed?
Dismissed as just routine troop rotations. Then, just 2 days before the attack, December 14th, a woman escapes from German territory. She reports the woods near Bitburg are absolutely jammed with German equipment, tanks, artillery, everything.
Still ignored. Why?
It comes down to what the sources call the American mental set about the Ardennes. It was seen as this quiet, neutral zone. Important stuff happened north, in the industrial areas, or south towards the Saar, but never in the middle, at the seam between army groups. It was a place to arrest units, break in new ones.
Fatal complacency, as you said.
And then, December 16th, it all explodes. The German plan needed instant breakthroughs, but that American resistance, however localized at first, started to slow things down immediately.
Okay, let's look at those initial clashes. Up north first, the V Corps front. The 2nd and 99th Infantry Divisions holding the northern shoulder.
Right, they got hit hard, but they managed to form that critical defensive line around Elsenborn Ridge.
The Elsenborn line.
Yeah. The 2nd Division actually had to call off its own attack near Wallerscheid and pull back fast to help form that line by the 19th. And their defense shows why the German armor struggled. The Americans were using Sherman tanks, 75mm guns.
Outgunned by German Panthers and Tigers in the open?
Hopelessly outgunned in open country. So they had to be smart.
How'd they do it?
They didn't fight tank-on-tank battles in the fields. They parceled out the Shermans in the villages, using buildings, stone walls, hedgerows for cover, creating ambushes at close range where the German tanks couldn't maneuver or use their superior range.
Turning villages into tank traps.
Exactly. It was brutal, close-quarters fighting, and it just bled the German advance. By December 23rd, up near Buchenbach, the 12th SS Panzer Division, they'd had enough. The reports say they were basically throwing in the sponge. The cost was too high to keep pushing there.
But that success on the northern shoulder had a terrible cost further south, in the 8th Corps zone, the Schneeeifel.
Ah, yes, the Schneeeifel. That's the absolute low point for the Allies in the first few days. A disaster. Sources call it Kine in the Schneeeifel, a textbook encirclement.
This was the 106th Division, the new guys.
The brand new 106th Infantry Division. Just arrived, put in this quiet sector to get some experience. They took the full force of the Central German thrust, got cut off, surrounded almost immediately. Thousands captured. It was one of the biggest mass surrenders for the U.S. Army in Europe.
A direct result of underestimating the sector.
Absolutely. While that was happening, the main German armored fist, Kampfgruppe Peiper of the 1st SS Panzer, was trying to punch through towards St. Vith.
St. Vith, the key road junction.
The absolute key. Described as the funnel for all the roads heading west from the Aare River. Peiper was supposed to blast through, like the Blitzkrieg in 1940, get across that rough plateau in maybe 9 hours.
But he didn't.
No way. He got bogged down almost instantly. It was a combination of things. Infantry didn't clear the way fast enough. Americans blew key bridges just in time. And then incredible traffic jams.
Traffic jams with tanks.
You have to remember, the German army still relied heavily on horses for transport, especially for artillery. So you had horse-drawn artillery units clogging up the same narrow, muddy roads the Panzer column needed. It just ground to a halt at times.
And this Kampfgruppe Peiper, it gained a grim reputation too, didn't it?
It did. The sources are pretty clear. Peiper's unit carries the bestial distinction, as one report puts it, of being the unit responsible for the systematic killing of prisoners of war during the Bulge. The Malmedy Massacre is the most infamous example.
Linked to orders from higher up.
It seems linked to Hitler's general rhetoric about ruthlessness and possibly specific no prisoners directives that some commanders, including Piper reportedly, passed down. A really dark aspect of that spearhead's desperate push.
So mud, traffic, blown bridges, the fierce fighting up north. It all bought time. Time for the Allies to react towards the real linchpin, Bastogne.
Exactly. The initial defense that bought the most crucial time right in the path of the 5th Panzer Army was the veteran 28th Infantry Division. They fought tenaciously along the Our and Clerf rivers, delaying the advance just long enough for Bastogne to become the focus.
Because with the center collapsing around the Schnee Eifel.
Bastogne became the obvious place to make a stand. It controlled all the major roads westward. Holding it was essential.
And that's where the 101st Airborne comes in, the Screaming Eagles.
Right, a rapid, kind of chaotic deployment. The 101st, plus bits and pieces of armored units like Combat Command B of the 10th Armored, they got rushed into Bastogne just in time to form a perimeter.
Becoming that defensive hedgehog.
A hedgehog under siege for days. And crucially, communications held up surprisingly well inside the pocket. A core radio link truck apparently made it in just before the last road was cut. That was vital for coordination.
And the weather eventually helped.
Massively. When the skies finally cleared around Christmas Eve, the air resupply drops started. That was described as a tremendous morale booster for the troops freezing in their foxholes.
And then the relief force arrived, the turning point.
December 26th. That's the date everyone points to. Combat Command R of the 4th Armored Division, led by Creighton Abrams.
Later General Abrams, yes.
That's the one. They broke through the German lines at a village called Assenois, opening a narrow corridor into Bastogne.
And even at the time, people knew this was it.
Yes. Contemporary accounts recognized December 26th as the day of decision. The German offensive wave had crested. Strategically, the gamble had failed, even though hard fighting continued for weeks.
Okay, let's step back. If you had to boil it down, what are the two absolute key takeaways from this first critical phase? Why did the German offensive falter so quickly?
I think it's two main things. First, the plan itself, the big solution, was just too ambitious. Strategically and logistically, it asked the impossible of the German army in late 44. The supply lines were doomed from the start.
And the second?
The American resistance. Not necessarily brilliant maneuvering at first, but just sheer, stubborn, localized defense. Units like the 2nd Division up north, the 28th Division initially. They slowed the German timetable just enough. That friction allowed Allied reserves, like the 101st, to get into position.
And firepower played a big role in how that defense eventually solidified.
A huge role. The Germans, because of their transport problems, were relying a lot on their tanks and assault guns for direct fire support. They were short on artillery shells.
While the Americans,
once they got organized, could leverage their industrial might. Their artillery, you see examples like a Butkenbach, the 33rd Field Artillery Battalion, just hammering German assembly areas with white phosphorus, high explosive, and breaking up attacks before they even started. They eventually achieved local fire superiority in many places. The Americans could fight from a base of relative abundance, fire-wise. The Germans were constantly counting shells.
A fascinating collision of, desperate ambition versus muddy roads and unexpected grit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with, something that comes out of the after-action reports. German commanders consistently noted how the Allies often failed to properly coordinate artillery fire between the boundaries of divisions and corps. There were gaps.
Oh, the seams.
Exactly. And the Germans made gainful tactical use of the gaps, as one report says. They aimed their breakthroughs right at these seams, like between the 99th and 106th Divisions.
So the question is?
What if those boundaries hadn't been gaps? What if there had been seamless, overlapping, pre-planned artillery coverage aimed specifically at those critical connection points? Could that alone, just well-integrated firepower at the seams, have potentially blunted the initial breakthroughs entirely, neutralizing the surprise factor? Something to think about regarding defensive doctrine.
If you found this episode helpful, informative, or entertaining, be sure to hit follow or subscribe in your podcast app. You'll get our new episodes for free, and it tells the platform we're doing a good job. It takes 30 seconds, but leaving a review is a massive help. It's the main way new listeners find out if this show is right for them. We read every single one. Thanks from all the Visions of War podcast team.